Welcome to another episode of Unfoodable Weekly. I'm your host, Paul Barron, and in today's show, we're going to be talking about gluten-free and grain-free trends that are impacting the restaurant business. Let's get to it. So here we are on another episode of Unfoodable Weekly, and of course, gluten-free is all the craze. We are seeing tremendous impact on menus, consumer impact, a lot of discussion on social media about the topic of gluten-free. We want to extend that a little bit deeper in the topic of grain-free. The author of Wheat Belly, Dr. Davis, actually is on the show, and we're going to be talking kind of how grain-free differs, but also myself. You know, I actually had a chance to read the book about a year and a half ago, started practicing using grain-free in my diet and made a lot of changes. It was kind of fun, but most of all, it actually did do what the book said it would do, and that was reduce some of the things from a health side that affected my life, running, stiffness in my hands, and so on. It was kind of fun to see how diet can have such an impact. But what's really cool here is that restaurants are starting to actually implement some of these strategies in their menu development. Everything from using the almond flour, new protein flours, and also introducing a lot more proteins and vegetables into their design of their menu. So it's going to be fun to check this out on this episode. We want to welcome Dr. Davis to the show. Dr. Davis, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So, Doctor, you, of course, are the author of Wheat Belly, a pretty infamous book in the culinary scene and the restaurant industry, really because it kind of starts to break down the barriers of what gluten-free is and kind of just a processed grain-free diet. And, of course, here in America, as you obviously know, we have a lot of grain eaters. Let's talk a little bit about Wheat Belly and kind of the vision behind what you were trying to do with the book.
I was trying to convey to everybody that right in our hands is an astoundingly, incredibly powerful tool to regain health, of which weight control is part. You know, people think of weight as just being excess weight. No, excess weight is a sign of poor health. There's something wrong with your health and with your diet. Right. Ironically, of course, we live during a time when our own government tells us that our diet should be dominated by grains. And by the way, for the more advanced listeners, grains are seeds of grasses. And last I checked, I'm not related to any cows or goats. And yet we've been told that our diet should be centered around the seeds of grass. I mean that quite literally. That's what grains are. They're seeds of grasses. Any farmer, of course, knows this. And so if we start to peel back the layers in this rotten onion, we start to find that there's a whole lot of stuff here to talk about. But on the bright side, because this can become a negative conversation pretty quickly. So on the bright side is there's an incredibly powerful tool here to regain health. We can reverse autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis. We can reverse skin rashes. There's several hundred skin rashes we can reverse with this lifestyle approach. We can get rid of diabetes and pre-diabetes. We can get rid of blood pressure medicines, cholesterol medicines, antidepressants. We can turn around a lot of eating disorders like bulimia and binge eating disorder. Right. We can watch people lose astounding amounts of weight in essentially record time without counting calories, without pushing the plate away. So that's what my life has become now. It's telling people and explaining. This is not just some crazy fad based on anecdotal evidence. This is real stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've had a chance to read your book and actually practiced your recommendations in the book for over a year and a half now. Went completely gluten-free, don't eat bread or pasta, but have really explored a lot of new ingredients, things like almond flour, chickpea flour. We make our pancakes with it. Eat vegetable-based breads now, which are actually quite tasty and incredibly innovative around some of the food producers. Restaurants, though, have actually started to take on to this craze as well. And I won't necessarily call it a craze, but a very highly interesting area for consumers as they start to cut back on grains, breads, and so on. Anything when you look at restaurants down the road of really starting to provide gluten-free options around the protein side? Because obviously we're going to get a little bit bored with, maybe the same old thing all the time. Anything that you're seeing in terms of trends around that area?
Well, of course, I pity the poor restaurant owner who's got to navigate all the food allergies
Yeah.
that they're encountering. Dairy, grains, of course, nuts. So I understand how difficult this can be. We can't please everybody. That's quite clear. Nobody can. I can't in writing books. Restaurant owners cannot suit every taste, every allergy, every food intolerance. Now, you make an excellent point, and that is we don't want to become complicit in causing problems in nutrition. And so people often hear the wheat belly message as a gluten-free message, and that's not entirely true. Right. So as you know, since you've navigated outside of the world of the gluten-free, gluten is one protein, actually a collection of protein, but one component in wheat, rye, and barley.
Right.
But these are complex plants, genetically complex plants. They have more genetic complexity than humans do. And so there's great complexity in the wheat plant and wheat, rye, and barley. And gluten's only one component among thousands. And so that's why I make it clear the wheat belly message is a grain-free message. Like I mentioned to you, grains are seeds of grasses. And even more so than humans, grains or grasses are promiscuous. The wheat belly approach is to eliminate grains. Now that's a tall order, I understand that. But if I convey this message properly, and we accept that it's a big chunk of the diet we're going to reorder, people are given truly astounding control over health. And I don't believe it's an exaggeration to say that, this explains why people lose 73 pounds in a year, why they can get rid of insulin and diabetes drugs within a few weeks, why they can get rid of 3 drugs for, let's say, autoimmune diseases like lupus or multiple sclerosis, why they can have depression lift. It's the number of conditions that reverse with grain elimination. Now, I started out my conversation, the wheat belly conversation, with wheat because 2 reasons. One, it's the worst of all of them. It's among the most changed by agribusiness, and it's so dominant. So I picked on the biggest bully of all, that's modern wheat. The products that come from the high-yield semi-dwarf strain, the 18-inch tall plant created essentially in a laboratory and now populates all store shelves, and sadly the products served in most restaurants. So I see the restaurants adapting to this mostly as the gluten-free message,
right,
and replacing wheat with cornstarch, rice flour, tapioca starch, and potato flour. So that's kind of like replacing wheat with sugar, because those replacement ingredients have exceptional glycemic implications. They send your blood sugar sky high. So I tell people, including people who come to me trying to navigate this in a restaurant service type of way, let's not replace a problem, wheat and perhaps other grains, with another problem, gluten-free replacement ingredients, at least the modern conception from the food industry of gluten-free. That is, foods made of cornstarch, rice flour, tapioca starch, and potato flour.
Right.
So you're doing it the right way. We replace a problem, wheat and grains, with non-problematic ingredients that don't contain gluten, yes, but also don't mess with your blood sugar.
Exactly.
Like, say, cornstarch or rice flour does, and don't have other unhealthy implications. If we get people to understand these basic, simple principles, it means you can have pizza, and it's a health food. Mm-hmm. Pizza becomes a health food. Cheesecake becomes a health food. You can have cheesecake and pizza for breakfast. And so it really, once we understand these basic principles, it really opens up an entirely new world of possibilities in food. But there's a few hurdles to get beyond to grasp it.
Have you done any research in the area of European diets versus the American diets? We see a lot of different types of menu use, proteins, and even to a certain extent, the way that they actually grow and cultivate their own products over there. Anything that you've done in terms of comparing the two countries or two parts of the world, I should say?
There without question differences, sometimes major differences in how livestock are raised, how crops are raised. In the U.S., we probably are the worst at relying on such things as genetic modification, the excessive herbicide, pesticide use. So these issues tend to be somewhat less. I won't say they're free. We're still seeing such things as an explosion of autoimmune diseases in France, and an increase in obesity and type 2 diabetes in China. So it's not as if other countries are free of these issues. They're experiencing it. Sadly, the country that thought of itself as being at the forefront of nutritional insight, the U.S., has also experienced among the worst epidemics of obesity, diabetes, and all the health issues that come from this unprecedented reliance on the seeds of grasses, grains. So the problems tend to be worse here than, say, in South Korea or the Netherlands, but they still have their share of problems.
Interesting. So obviously from our view, with restaurant operators really trying to innovate menus and things of that nature, it's good to see at least and get the conversation out there so that I know we're seeing a lot more movement towards new menu development that's really starting to address this issue, especially around everything from beer to the protein selections that restaurants are making available. So, Doctor, this is some great information. Thank you so much for stopping in on the show today. I love the fact that Wheat Belly has kind of moved into a national phenomenon in terms of your book. So, congratulations on that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So thanks again for watching Unfoodable Weekly. As you guys know, we do this show every week. If you have a great idea about a show topic that you're interested in, make sure and send us an email just to producer@foodabletv.com. We get those, we take a look at it, whether you're an expert, a guru in your category, or maybe you've got something that you want to talk about from a brand perspective. That's what we do here each week as we talk to leading industry experts, authors, brand leaders, you name it. This show is kind of covering soup to nuts, a little bit about everything from technology to culinary trends, a lot of consumer demographic areas that really help brands do a lot of marketing. So we're always open to new ideas for the show. Please send us any notes and comments. Of course, you can reach us at Foodable on Twitter. And for those of you who have not had a chance to see some of our other shows on the network, one of the shows that I think is really a great show that we want to continue to develop is our show called Food is a Lifestyle. Now, Food is a Lifestyle is a show that is one of the first reality shows about the industry trade. Make sure and check out some of the episodes there. I think you might find that you'll like them, and we hope to see you next week on Foodable Weekly.